All right, we're here with Neal Applebaum.
Baum.
Baum?
Baum.
Baum, okay.
German, means
Yeah.
tree, Applebaum. Apple
I've
tree.
always pronounced it different ways throughout,
My whole
our-
life, people have, it's always been a funny name, but now it's certainly good for name recognition, Apple Tree.
And you are in the running for Cannon County Executive come August.
Yes, I am.
And tell us a little bit about your background. Where are you from? How long have you lived in Cannon County?
Well, I've lived in Cannon County for 17 years, and I've moved here knowing just one person. My background is the child of a Ford Motor Company executive. We moved 5 times before I finished kindergarten, as my father was working at corporate offices next to various Ford Motor Company factories around the country. And then we settled in New Jersey for all the elementary school years, and then moved to central Pennsylvania for the high school years. I skipped my senior year of high school, went to college a year early, went to Temple University. Then I spent a semester, really just not a semester, part of school, but I took 3 months and lived in Israel when I was 18, and then transferred schools to Ohio, and went to Oberlin College. And I got a degree in economics there, and then moved to Chicago right after college. In my later 20s, I went back to school so I could study for and pass the CPA exam, which I did. And while I was in Chicago, I had sort of 2 careers. One was in the recycling/garbage industry, so I had actually a contract with Waste Management when I was 23 years old to pick up commercial recycling in the city of Chicago. Did that for a few years, consulted on a couple of large recycling facilities as well while that was going on. And then I spent 8 years in I'll call it business consulting, but it was the world of stock brokerage firms. So stock brokerage firms of various sizes all over the country. We did accounting for them and securities regulation, consulting, making sure that everything they were doing was properly done and taught them how to do it properly. So that gave me a lot of exposure to numbers, people all around the country, dealing with 50 state regulators and FINRA, which is the securities regulator, as well as the SEC. So I had a very peculiar business background. I also had experience framing houses during college summer breaks, and everything I've ever lived in I've renovated. I really like real estate and architecture more importantly. I've also general contracted a $2.3 million single-family home in Chicago, so that was a little trial by fire, and that was done successfully. Everyone was pleased with the outcome, and the family that the house was sold to, they're still there and having a good life, I believe.
Well, it sounds pretty good. It's a very verbal background, very widespread background, it seems like.
There's things that appeal to me intellectually. I like architecture, I like buildings, but all these things still come down to numbers and whether or not you can project manage, whether or not you can work with strangers to complete an outcome. And the general contracting experience was the most complicated because there were a lot of dollars involved in a time frame that had to be met. And I had a great time. The contractors we worked with were very pleased.
What brought you to Cannon County?
I had just one friend who had moved here, and then I came to visit 4 years after he had bought some land up on Sycamore Creek, and I just fell in love with Cannon County. It's beautiful, the hills, the water, the trees, the rural connection that was still in place here that people didn't like. Their old farmhouses that hadn't been lived in a long time, they didn't want them touched. They wanted them there as monuments to their families. And given that I had moved around so much as a child, the idea that people were that committed to their family and their sense of place really impressed me. And I went back to Chicago and gave my boss 1 year's notice.
Yeah.
And then moved here. I stopped working on December 31st and came down here on January 1st to start seeing if there was a piece of land I could buy.
Yeah, and you've been a real estate agent here in Cannon County, amongst many other hats, obviously, that you've worn here.
After working on the headwaters, or what became the Headwaters Wildlife Management Area, that was the 1,000 acres that Jeffrey Young forfeited to the federal government during his trial. I had done so much real estate with that. That was 1,000 acres in 20 parcels, and I had a very good sense of things. And since I liked buildings and architecture, I got my license for 4 years.
Well, and did well with that. And then, of course, you've had some other experiences in Cannon County as far as heading up things, being a director. Tell us a little bit about the things that you've done here in
Most of what I've done since moving here has been on a, volunteer basis. And when I had my real estate license, that was during the recession years. in volume of houses sold, I think I did a good job. As far as the price of those homes, they were really small. There wasn't a lot of money to make, but I found a lot of people their first homes, and a lot of parcels that were sitting in foreclosure were, bought by folks who have renovated them, and I think it's been good for the economy to have properly updated homes. So while all that was going on, and I had an office working for Wanda Reed, downtown Woodbury, I met the chamber. I started to learn about 3-star and the fact that, Cannon County didn't have its 3-star status. So I had offered the chamber to have a website put together, and that was my first regular sort of involvement here with, the mayors and the folks who run things, basically, local businesses. So we got our 3-star status back, and then suddenly I was vice president of the chamber and then president of the chamber. And it gave me a chance to understand the strengths of our skill sets, the weaknesses of our skill sets, our place in Middle Tennessee, our place in the Upper Cumberland region. I got to meet with various division heads of state agencies of the Upper Cumberland Development District, and I also found opportunities to voluntarily write grants through. During the recession years, there was extra money to do energy efficiency work, so I set about, finding out what I could, and administered a grant that benefited City Hall. Woodbury City Hall got a free, from the government, new heating cooling system, and that grant had more capacity in dollars than what the city was going to take. So we were able to tie in the work that the high school was working on. So we were able to contribute through that grant another $50,000 to its heating plant. So there was a way to get money brought into Cannon County to get projects done that we didn't have local tax dollars for, and it gave me an opportunity to work with the school system. I got to work with Douglas Jennings on accounting details related to those grants. So I've had lots of opportunities, to engage and participate with folks. That chamber situation sort of then rolled me into the industrial board. The industrial board hadn't met regularly in 8 years, and it was fully reseated 6 years ago June. And I served 4 years on that, went from vice president to president or chairman of the industrial board for a couple of years. The industrial board had various complications, lots of debt, some tenant issues, buildings that were in disrepair. There was just $30,000 in the bank and more than $400,000 of debt, and we set about how this unstaffed separate corporation, but related to county government, but separate corporation was going to stand on its own and straighten out its financial condition, as well as meeting the bigger mission of industrial recruitment and trying to get a sense of how that works. So we sold off properties, put those properties on the tax rolls. We generated the dollars we needed from the sale of that to do the repair work that Crane needed. It's certainly the primary tenant and largest private employer in the county. And then 4 years into that, Crane was able to buy the building from the industrial board, and I feel, as a private business owner, a person who's been in private businesses my whole life, that this was an opportunity for Crane to take control of their situation and not have government as a landlord. And I think we're not great landlords. That's not what we do, and on a voluntary basis, I don't think that's the way to property manage. So selling the building to Crane gave them an opportunity to have more control over their future and let them deal with their expansion needs. And they were able to take care of their physical plant, and it no longer had to be a burden on the industrial board. So that was a very good thing. While that was going on, I was invited to join the board of the Art Center, and John Barker invited me to do that based on the Jeff Young project that had gone on, what I think I'd done with the industrial board and for the chamber. We had just gotten the farmers market building built before I was brought on. Actually, 3 months after I was hired at the Art Center, it had been in the works. We got the farmers market building placed there and very quickly installed, and very few county dollars went towards that. It was mostly matched from other places. And the other thing that's at the Art Center before I started working there was the Stones River Watershed Association's kayak canoe launch. So you'd be surprised, when you're at the Art Center just working there, you're throughout all the wet months or after any good storm, there are people who come from all over to paddle the Upper East Fork here in Cannon County. So getting people involved with the water that's all surface water in Cannon County, getting them exercising, and just taking advantage of that resource that we have. The ramp, provided that and still does today. At the Art Center, when I was hired, Even though I had been on the board, and there were 27 board members when I was on the board, what we didn't have was a big sense of its overall financial picture. The Art Center has done an amazing job meeting its mission since it was founded. It expanded and expanded, again, meeting its mission. What it didn't do well was manage its long-term financial situation. So I set about figuring out how much we really needed to stabilize the Art Center so that we could continue to meet the mission, continue to serve the families all across Middle Tennessee, and certainly a significant number of people in Cannon County with the programming that happens at the Art Center. We basically had no cash. Let's call it $10,000 in the bank, and there was still a $500,000 mortgage left on the building, 32 years left to go on that. And the goal was simply, how do we raise $500,000 as quickly as possible, pay off the mortgage, so instead of making mortgage payments, we could spend those revenue dollars that we're bringing in on programming, on the people that make things actually happen, instead of trying to service some complicated debt. So we accomplished that. In 18 months, we actually raised the $500,000. It wasn't all in the door, but we had commitments and pledges to make that possible. So we have officially paid off the mortgage entirely. So $500,000 was repaid within 4.5 years. Separate from that, we also spent $100,000 renovating the facility. So the $500,000 goal, actually, we met at $800,000. We brought in $800,000, so we will spend $100,000 replacing light fixtures, the sound system, the lighting system in the theater. We spent $20,000 recarpeting the theater itself, renovating the bathrooms that hadn't been done in 27 years, making the user's experience just more comfortable. On top of all the renovations, we also initiated a $1 million endowment goal, and we already have $100,000 in the endowment, and it is simply there to help look after the maintenance requirements of an 18,000 square foot building. So I feel like the Art Center is on really stable footing to stay in business for the next 27 years and serve the children, adults, and seniors of Middle Tennessee.
You know, I think that's another one of your staples of accomplishments that you can look back on and what you've done with the Art Center and how you've been able to make it.
I think not having the Art Center would be a huge loss for Cannon County and all of Middle Tennessee. So, and the numbers of people who had spent 25 years up until I had gotten there, creating wonderful programming, teaching kids, getting folks together for entertainment and cultural events. It just needed to keep going. What I didn't know at the time was how rare the Art Center was. The mission says, a mission statement, job description says, it's a unique model for arts in a rural community. It is so unique, there isn't another one in all of Tennessee.
Right.
And I didn't know that until I was hired and started out talking to the Tennessee Arts Commission about who can I talk to, who can give me a comparison about how they're running things and what their financial situation is, how they meet their operational needs. And there's us.
Yeah.
We are the model.
You don't have another county our size that has the arts capabilities.
There isn't a larger county our size that does what we do.
Yeah. How do you figure that all these things translate into success in being a county executive? How your experiences and stuff?
The folks that we need to work with, work for. I feel like I've been serving the people of Cannon County through the Industrial Board, through the Watershed Association, certainly through the Art Center. I've been serving the population of Cannon County, looking after the community's best interest. In the course of doing that, I've been able to fundraise, so I know who has money, how to find money, whether that's private donations, whether that's private investors, or whether that's government programming and with grants associated, and that could be federal, state, or regional grant funding. I know those folks. I've worked with those folks. I'm very computer literate. I'm quite capable of applying for grants, and after seeking them out and figuring out where there's opportunities to bring the dollars in that we need to get this place up and running the way it needs to be. Planning, like at the Art Center, we're planning for the next 25 years. I think the goal for the county executive is plan for the next 50, and let's do that in stages, and I know where to find those dollars, and I know who those folks are to talk to who can give us the guidance we need. My goal, or my experience has always been, we're not going to reinvent the wheel. We need to find out who's already doing things well and draw on their experience, and that will get us a step closer, faster to where we need to be. And I feel like I have a great relationship with people across various state agencies, TDOC, TDEC, TDBRA, Economic and Community Development, Upper Cumberland Development District. I've dealt with these people face to face. They know my skills. They know they can rely on me to ask the right questions and follow through on getting the projects done. So I think I can hit the ground running to work towards resolving some of our long-term issues here.
If you were to talk about the strengths of Cannon County to somebody, what would you say to them? What are some of the strengths?
I think the biggest strength is people love their community. People love this county. They love that this is their home. And I've never lived in a place that's this small and people have that connection. So our biggest strength is that people are committed. The second thing is I think there's a significant number of families who are going to hold on to their land here. They're going to stabilize the community over the next bunch of generations, and we can count on them doing that. There are certainly people who are coming and going, people who are passing away, lands being tracted up. That's certainly inviting new people into town. And if you look at the real estate market, and having had my license for 4 years, then also owning various rental properties and a 150-acre farm where I live, I track numbers. And I track real estate numbers in various neighborhoods and cities around the country, various neighborhoods of specific cities around the country. I've traveled around the country, since graduating college. So I see those parallels, even though we're not a big city. All big cities are just comprised of small neighborhoods. So I can draw on how those experiences have developed to how that's going to happen here in Cannon County. But again, if you're looking at the real estate market, you'll see that there's effectively no rental housing. If there's something for rent, it will rent in a day. That means there's a limited number of places for people to come home to after they've been to college, for seniors who may need rental housing, and I'm very interested in market rate housing. So we have very limited housing opportunities. There's new construction happening. It'll be interesting to see how that goes in the next few years, how many more housing units we're going to generate. It'll be interesting to see where all those folks come from around the country. Sitting at the Art Center, it was a very easy place for people to stop in and get oriented about Cannon County. The Chamber of Commerce also has their office there, so it was a natural place for newcomers and tourists to stop in. I got to engage with a lot of folks coming from all around the country who were equally as impressed with Cannon County as I was when I first came here.
What are some of the weaknesses that you see in Cannon County that need to be improved?
I think we need to be looking long term, just like I think every private family needs to be looking at their budget, needs to be saving every day for retirement savings. You also need to save for putting a new roof on your house. You need to save for putting a new furnace on your house. Your septic tank might go out. There's a variety of things that happen on an individual basis in your own home, and I project that onto the county. Where are we infrastructure-wise? What does our water system look like? Does it have all the financial resources it needs to function comfortably and serve the community? Our sewer system that only serves the city, where is that? How is that going to enable us to do infill inside the city limits and bring more people in and hopefully more retail? So I'm interested in infrastructure, and then infrastructure applies to all of the county-owned buildings, whether that's the sheriff's department that isn't certified right now. What condition is the courthouse in? What are our heating, cooling bills? Any place where we can save $1 every day, we can redirect those dollars towards actual programming, staff, doing the things that need to get done here. So there's a lot of aspects of looking after our physical infrastructure, whether it's utility or buildings, and making sure they're functional and serving the community for the next 25 years, and that there's a plan for that, and I believe it's possible to pull that off.
One of the other candidates got on Facebook a couple of days ago and put it out to the public that he wanted their input on 3 things that the public would like to see more out of county government. There wasn't that many that I know of that took part in that little poll survey, but some of it that was coming back was transparency, budget, bringing in new business.
Well, I've been sitting through the budget meetings, and not sitting through, but enjoying and absorbing and listening to a lot of historical references that you get when you sit through a 2 or 3 hour budget meeting week after week. There's a lot of history among the commissioners, having served on the commission for years at a stretch. They understand how we've gotten to where we are. They understand probably where we need to get to, and they understand that there's a gap there. So from a transparency perspective, if you show up at a budget meeting, and you're going to have to show up at many budget meetings, you can really understand all the department's budgets. You can understand the wages. It's all there. I'm a non-practicing CPA, a non-practicing certified public accountant. My clients were, again, stock brokerage firms around the country. I dealt with accountants and auditors all over the country. I understand transparency. I understand what auditors are looking for. I understand what audit findings are. And I know how to get things fixed. So I think the transparency is there. I am not sure how we're going to get more of those details online for folks to see, but it's all public information. The public has not even a right, but I want them to know where that information is and that they have access to it at any time.
Good deal. All right. Well, we appreciate the opportunity to come and interview you today. I know that you've got a open house or a meet and greet type activity scheduled here in the next couple of weekends.
Yeah, there's two coming up.
Okay.
Elizabeth Pease, whose family's been here for a very long time, she's opening up her family's home, which is Beaver Dam. It's remains of a 2,000-acre farm. There's maybe 15 acres left, but the house is spectacular. If you want to step back in time, this is the place to do it. So please come see the house. Elizabeth will be giving folks tours. Come ask me any questions you have. And if you haven't registered to vote, we're going to have a table set up for folks to do their voter registration. That voter registration must be done by July 3rd. So that's coming up on June 23rd. That's a Saturday. That'll be 10 to 2. And then on July 7th, there will be an open house and solar tour at my house on Parchcorn Hollow Road. You'll see advertisements about that. I want to show folks my simple solar hot water heater, the tiny solar electric system that provides enough energy for my house, and then the much larger system that actually just provides power onto the grid that serves the community at large. I want folks to see what those things physically look like and touch them, understand them physically as objects, how much space they take up, and also how much the power they generate. My house itself is what we call a net zero energy house. I have not paid a utility bill since we installed our small solar energy system, and a lot of that has to do with saving money on reducing our consumption first, super insulating the house where possible. So those devices, that saves an individual money every month, and then the big picture, the power is being used by folks who need it, and invest in yourself, invest in your house, and there's parallels to what county government can be doing there as well. So that's July 7th.
Okay. Well, we appreciate it once again. We'll keep these dates in mind for the public, and good luck to you coming up in August.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right, Neal Applebaum, candidate for Cannon County Executive.